Hi, I'm Stephen Lulich, and this is the Lulich Corner, presented to you by Lulich Attorneys. And today we have two people with us from Cox Gifford Seawinds Funeral Home. The first, of course, ladies always first, their funeral director, Kristen Jewell. So you're more likely to meet her up front. And we have the general manager with us, Jonathan Raymond.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Hi, folks. How you doing?
Good afternoon.
Good. Okay, so let's just start with giving the folks a little bit of an idea of where you're located.
Sure. We have 3 locations in the greater area, from Melbourne to Sebastian and Vero Beach.
Okay, so you're in Melbourne, Vero Beach, and Sebastian.
Absolutely. Davis Seawinds in Melbourne, Seawinds Funeral Home and Crematory in Sebastian, and Cox Gifford Seawinds in Vero Beach.
Okay, good. After our Judge Cox, Cynthia Cox? No, just joking. So, most people end up dealing with a funeral service, okay, sooner or later, and a lot of times it's the loved one who's dealing with somebody who passed away, right?
Yes.
So who is that person that normally contacts you?
So typically speaking, we will be given some information when we get the notification of a death. Sometimes that is directly from a family, but usually from the caretaker, whether it be a hospital, nursing home, hospice. So we're usually doing the reaching out. Next of kin, legal next of kin, spouse, child, right, parent, grandparent, any of those. But sometimes it's just a friend or a power of attorney.
So who has the authority to work with you?
Legal next of kin is going to be the first person we look to. When it goes down the line, we get often asked about that power of attorney, and we have to explain to folks that ceases at the time that the person ceases.
So even in the funeral business, you have to have a little legal knowledge.
Absolutely.
And so that's correct. The power of attorney ceases when you pass away. And then if you do have a will, the person in charge is the personal representative.
Right. And
so do you end up in a difficult situation? Well, I'm the brother, I'm the sister, I'm the mom, I'm the personal representative.
All the time.
All the time. And so you have to you go to the one that has the most authority.
So we start with legal next of kin, being a spouse, and then we'll go down that line. If we end up with a personal representative, if it's contentious or whatnot, we will let that play out and get legal direction from the legal community.
Hence, you're in contact with me occasionally.
That's right.
Right. So that's good. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to explore a little bit about the funeral services. Okay, you have 2 basic kinds, 3 basic kinds. What kind of funeral services do you offer?
Typically speaking, we have 3 things we do most often, right? We're going to either bury somebody, we're going to cremate somebody, or we're going to send them someplace else. So we're either going to send you home. Up north is pretty common here in Vero Beach and Indian River County, or we're going to bury or cremate you on a local level.
Okay, so just for points of clarification, you can send an entire body somewhere else.
We do it all the time.
Okay, or you can bury the body locally if that's their arrangement.
Correct.
Okay, or you can cremate them and they can take their urn wherever they want.
Right. The final disposition is the act of cremation or the act of burial. So once a person is cremated, the family is free to do pretty much whatever they'd like with those cremated remains. But you're not limited in either of those circumstances. Any of those 3, we can do services beforehand for all of them. And that's one of the things that often is just not understood when a family chooses to cremate somebody or to send them back home. Oftentimes we'll be, no services here. Well, are you sure? Because, you have obviously a connection here and a home here or friends here, and they need to grieve as well. So we will educate them that we can still do a viewing, a service, memorial service, any of those things in combination with then cremating, burying, or sending you back home.
And so what's really interesting is as attorneys, we deal with the same type of issues, okay, that you deal with, and the same people. For instance, even though people don't always have a will. Okay, in fact, 70% of Americans do not have a will. And when they ask them, how come you don't have a will? They say, we didn't get around to it. Well, probably the real reason is they don't want to think about death. Okay, and likewise, you have people that they didn't think about it. Now, all of a sudden, their family or their loved ones or whoever remains has to think about it. Whereas we as attorneys, we think, well, you should prepare ahead of time and have a will. And I guess you would, in the same way, want to deal with the same people with regard to what? Pre-arrangements.
Right. I'm going to let Jonathan.
Pre-arrangements give a family an opportunity without that human emotion of a loss of a loved one to take an opportunity to make a thoughtful decision as to what is going to happen post-death of their loved one. And they can investigate all of the options ahead of time and make a decision when they're not forced to make a decision, because the day someone dies is never a good day to plan a funeral because there's a lot of emotions that are involved. So we have specialists, family care specialists, pre-planning specialists that help families to make these decisions based on their needs and wants, and our services and merchandise to complement and to accomplish those needs and wants ahead of time. They can either make the emotional decisions of just putting it to paper, and then we put it in our file cabinet and they call us when someone passes, or they can actually pay for it in advance, which gives them the benefit of what we call a price lock. So they pay for their funeral June 8th, 2023, and it really doesn't matter when you pass away because you've already paid those prices. So inflation does not affect those arrangements that are already made.
That's a great way of doing it. In fact, when people come in and I'm doing their estate planning documents, I always ask them, have you made pre-arrangements? Because it is a very effective way of making it easier on your loved ones when you pass away. Because then you take the stress out of, oh, what would they want to be cremated? Would they want a coffin? Or are they going to a cemetery plot? And by doing pre-arrangements, you've thought it out for yourself and your spouse possibly. Okay, and a very effective way of avoiding chaos.
Right. You know, as human beings or as parents or as children, we plan to go to school. We plan to get married. We make, people take 2 or 3 years to get married so they can plan their funeral, their marriage. But we usually have 3 hours to plan 80 years of life for a funeral when someone doesn't make pre-arrangements. So there's really no thought that can go into it. Plus your thoughts are not clear because you're emotionally traumatized by the loss of your mother, father, sister, brother, whatever it is. So pre-arrangements are really obligatory. Your way. What do you want? You leave a clear pathway forward.
Okay, and so
Steve.
even those people who maybe don't want a service, who don't want a casket, who don't want a cemetery lot, their remains have to be disposed of somehow.
Absolutely.
Right? And so that's what we call the simple cremation, right?
Sure.
Whether they take you out in the shoebox or get a fancy urn,
True.
it's the same thing, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And so people are always worried about, well, what about the expense? How much is it going to cost? But they can do this ahead of time. And so what, if you don't mind me asking, I'm not going to hold you to it, but what's the range? Where does it start and where does it end with regard to the whole menagerie of services?
Right. So realistically, you have to ask the questions, what are you anticipating? What would you like? And based on that response, we're able to provide services and merchandise and prices associated with those items to the families. But in general, Steve, cremation starting at about $1,900. Burial starting in the range of $7,000.
Yeah.
And it's all predicated on the type of casket you want, the type of vault you want, which is required by the cemetery, not by the funeral home or the state. Whether you want an open casket, flowers, register book, prayer cards. There's about 70 questions that you need a clear answer to move forward in making arrangements.
And so let's just talk about that open casket for a minute. Okay?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So that means that there's some sort of service going on, right?
Right.
Correct.
Okay. And you have facility in your
we do.
in your facilities. You have what? A chapel or something
all
of
of
the
our
sort?
funeral homes have a chapel where we could facilitate a religious type ceremony or non-religious if they wanted. But to accommodate a large number of people for that, we also have smaller rooms for visitations that might be a little bit smaller, more kind of come and go, if you will, as opposed to a set one time where someone gets up and speaks. So lots of options where that's concerned.
Okay, so there can, if you choose, there could be viewings, 1 or 2 viewings, something like that, and then when you say services, they can bring in whatever their minister, priest, or whoever they have to conduct some sort of ceremony.
Right.
Either their religious leader, or it can be a humanistic service by the family. Because
celebration of life.
Celebration of life, Steve. Nobody knows their mother or father better than their children or their siblings or what have you.
Okay.
And oftentimes they don't belong to an organized religion.
And so what do you have attached to that? I mean, do you have something where they can show pictures or videos or...
all of the above. So we can accommodate if people just want to do framed photos or poster boards. We can do that with, displaying those around the funeral home. We do, of course, have the capability of making a very nice compilation DVD if people can get to us photographs. And that's actually even been made easier with the digital world that we have today.
Yes.
We can send you a link. You can upload your photographs. It's pretty simple. And that we have TVs all throughout the funeral home that can show on.
Almost gets me to the point where I'm going to get excited about passing away.
Right.
No, but such is the life.
And in today's day and age, because the families are so spread across the globe, we actually have the ability to stream the services as well. So it doesn't matter whether their loved one is overseas or we most recently had a service where there were 7 different countries logged into this streaming service.
Zoomed in.
Everybody could see the service as it was unfolding. And services is a really big gray word for people, but it's what the family wants to,
right.
How their loved one wanted to be remembered or how they want to remember their loved one. And you spoke about those prearrangements and what families want. And oftentimes people are different. Even the next generation of families are different, where the loved one, the mother, the father, a grandparent, may have been a very dedicated Catholic, for instance, and the children are not as tied to that form of religion. Unknowingly, the family may not be doing what that individual would have wanted. So if I can tell you one thing, let your word be known. Reach out to not only your family, but to a funeral home to get all of your I's dotted and your T's crossed so that you can leave a clear path forward for your family in your absence on that day you pass away.
Okay, so it's prearrangements.
Yeah, and I can attest to in sitting with the families at the time of their need, which is the main component of what I do. Those who have those prearrangements and can see what their family member wanted, their mom or their dad, they're much more inclined to say, you know what, that is exactly right. That is what they would want us to do, and I'm so grateful that they've done this.
Great.
And we're going to take care of you and walk you through it, even if you don't have those prearrangements in place. But it certainly makes the decision-making easier for those left behind.
Okay, so is there options that we didn't cover? I think we covered a lot of territory, right? With cremation options, or there, what you do, we already covered that. Is there anything that we didn't cover? I mean, I know it's a very in-depth area, and like you said, you have some 70 questions you ask a person when you're thinking about prearrangements. But is there something that, generally speaking, we didn't cover?
I would say no. We've really touched on all of the high points, right, in the topics. It's really down into the details that we didn't get into today. But that's what we're here for. That's what we do. We take people by the hand and walk them through this process and make sure that they're comfortable and competent in their decision making, even though they didn't know what they don't know, right?
So, Kristin, why do you do this? I mean, of all the things in the world to do, why do you do this?
Right. I love to help people. And this is the one thing that not a whole lot of people get to do for other people. And I really thoroughly enjoy taking care of the families that we serve.
Yeah, it's not easy, I'm sure.
Not always.
Yeah, you got a lot of emotions out there that you have to deal with on a regular basis.
Absolutely, and take it on for the family. You know, they have all of these other stressors going on, and if I can make their day just a little bit easier, then I've been a huge success.
Okay, so if someone wanted to contact you, pre-arrangements or questions, what lies ahead, what they should do,
Okay.
where do they, is there a number or something that they can reach you at?
Sure. The funeral home number is 772-562-2365 in Vero Beach.
Right.
And we're online at coxgiffordseawinds.com. They can reach us that way as well.
Yeah, and so we believe that you should support your local businesses, okay? And we already do have a relationship because we have to talk about your business, okay? And of course, it's all confidential, isn't it?
Right.
It is. And to that point of what Kristen said, please call us or call your funeral home. Make a decision to take that courageous step to gather the information, to ask the questions, get the answers, and take the opportunity to protect your family for that uncertain day. There's no better gift. There's no better loving gift than you can leave your family than a clear path forward as to what you want. So they have absolutely no questions when you're not there to answer them.
Well, thank you so much for both coming in.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
very
us.
much for having us,
Appreciate
All
it.
Mr.
right, have a
Lulich.
great day.
You too.
You too.
Thank you.